Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today talking about concept ships. Which ones are left to be completed for the game? Which ones have been forgotten by the wayside? Well, they haven't been forgotten, but which ones are delayed into infinity or are taking ages? Which ones are coming soon? Excluding skins and minor variants, there are currently 92 flyable ships and vehicles in Star Citizen, around 121 that you can play with at the moment if you include those minor changes and variants. And depending on how you count, there are between 34 and 48 ships that have been announced that are left to be completed by Cloud Imperium currently for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Well, that's about a 50% difference on how you count them. So what's going on there? Why is there such a vast change in, if I count one way, there's this amount, and there's 14 more if I don't? Well, it's all this sort of like tiny variants and skin changes. Like even I would include maybe the Idris M and Idris P, maybe, or let's say the Ranger series of bikes. If you include each of the Ranger series as one individual bike, that's 3 vehicles. Yeah. Also, there's a load of Vandal ships, and if you count all those as well, then there's 48 sort of known in the works at the moment. And there's going to be a load of others that we don't know about that are in the works too. To be honest, in terms of work to getting a ship to completion though, typically if a ship or vehicle just has a minor change from the base version, then it will be completed at the same time, sort of, maybe, or soon after. But if it's a skin change, then it's just a skin. And meh. I'm not going to be focusing on those Vandal ships either. Instead, really, I'm looking at concept ships here that have previously been sold or announced that have yet to be completed, although not necessarily just that have been sold. So concept ships are actually a dying breed. They are working through a lot of them on a backlog basis, but Cloud Imperium are moving away from concepts to a more straight to flyable model. So ships like the Nomad, they don't announce them until they're ready and in-game. The Talon, they announced a couple of months before it was ready, but, well, I suppose it's not ready yet. At time of recording, it's coming in 3.12. But more and more ships are being done like this, and there are less and less concepts and more of these straight to flyables. So with the remaining concepts, the ones that aren't in game yet, when did they get announced? What are they? And do we have any updates? What's going on with them? I am going to start with 2012 and 2013 announced ships and sort of merge these together, as there's a little bit of overlap and crossover with some of the ships that were announced. Some of them had different names, some of them had models or were sort of announced unofficially, but if I merge them together, then there's no problem. So we've got the Idris M, the Corvette that became a mini carrier and frigate, and this is where you're going to be based for a large portion of the Squadron 42 campaign. The Idris is actually turning up in Alpha 3.12 as well, as an NPC only ship at that stage. It has a big old railgun on its nose, originally sold for $1,000 as well, I believe. We saw that ship and the Javelin as well earlier in May when it was flying around as part of the Fleet Week Navy sort of display that they were doing. They were fightable as well, which was pretty cool. There's the Idris P as well. That's the civilian stripped down version of the ship. This has the mount of the railgun, but doesn't come equipped with that weapon as standard. Boo! Though Cloud Imperium do sell an Idris K upgrade pack that comes with a beam weapon to put on that mount, along with some turret upgrades as well. So if you want to make it sort of stepping towards the Idris M sort of spec. There's a Bengal carrier. This is a massive military carrier, and we have no idea when it will be in the persistent universe. Expect that when it is, it will be incredibly rare. They've sort of said that you might be able to find them and then repair them back up and stuff like that in the future. It's unlikely that Cloud Imperium will sell these for real money, but I wouldn't put anything past them. I mean, it's always a possibility, isn't it? Now, some of the most wanted ships in-game from 2013, the Banu Merchantman. This is a large alien floating marketplace where you can have various shops, haul cargo, have meeting rooms, sales rooms. It can defend itself. There is some form of synergy with the Banu Defender. The ship is still in concept though, and has apparently got bigger, but the fact that players can have their own sort of shops and have NPCs run those shops is just kind of quite appealing. The Hull C is a pretty big cargo hauling vessel, again announced in 2013, that has folding out pylons that can house a huge amount of cargo containers, and they sort of like attach externally to the ship. It's basically a big cargo ship like we have in the real world, but in space. This ship is raring to get released as well. It has a few tech requirements which are nearing completion, and then it will appear in game. Now, this is going to be based on priorities, obviously, although it looks like it's nearing completion. That doesn't necessarily 100% mean that it is going to be in 2021, like I expect. The Orion is a massive strip mining vessel that we had heard a while ago, a few years ago now, had doubled in size, making it ridiculous in size. I wouldn't expect to see it in the persistent universe anytime soon, though, even though mining is probably the most polished and fleshed out gameplay loop so far. This ship is just so big, and strip mining is basically a magnitude above the current mining gameplay, that I would expect it to be one of the last few ships that Cloud Imperium tackle. There's also the Retribution Super Dreadnought, almost 3 kilometers long, from its original concept, I think actually 2,700 meters. We know the ship was being built in lore 2943, but it was operational in 2946 and used in the Battle of Oberon, being reported to be a kingship killer, which is the giant 3 kilometer long Vandal ship. Moving into 2014, we've got the Crucible. It's a medium-sized repair ship that was announced that can repair large ships, and even has a little hangar for repairing and refitting small fighters or ships. It's a flying toolbox, and it's going to be very useful in the future. We think it's sort of top tier repair. We've got the extremely large Endeavour as well. This is the sort of top tier science ship. It's a flying modular lab that can detach from the rear of the ship as well, so it can sort of have the front of the ship fly off and go about its business or go exploring, and exploration is going to be one of the sort of key things that the ship can do if it wants to. And then that rear modular section is basically a lab and can be set up for whatever. It can fly around the ship, it can be left behind, it can have biomes for farming, or can be set up as the Hope sort of large-scale hospital. It can be a mobile lab to crunch data, or an observatory, or an overclocking facility. There's a huge amount of modularity and sort of bits you can set this up with. Science crosses into so many areas of the game though, and this ship is very complex. I expect it to probably be the last concept ship that Cloud Imperium tackle that I've mentioned on this list. Another interesting ship on the list is the Genesis Starliner, a civilian transport vessel. Like a commercial passenger aircraft today, we expect to see these moving players and NPCs around the game one day, and players will be able to make money from providing those services too, and making sure their passengers are well looked after. The Javelin Destroyer, the most expensive and largest ship that players have been able to buy with real money so far. It's a true ship of war. Lots of big guns and torpedoes and things like that going on with the ship, but it also is built to take a huge amount of punishment. It was last on sale for between $2,700 and $3,000, which is a lot of money for a ship that's not even in game yet. Yes, of course, I have one. The Redeemer was a gunship dropship that was made by Star Citizen fans as part of the Next Great Starship series, but it had to be reconcepted to match the current direction of the game and its standards, but it's still keeping sort of in line with its original design. It's now a gunship rather than a dropship. We know it's in its white box phase, so we don't know when it's going to be done, but at least it's in some form of development. The Constellation Taurus is kind of a leftover from the Constellation series, which are all already in-game. It's a stripped-down cargo variant of the ship, and they keep pausing its development when something else comes along with a high priority. Other ships, locations, etc. It will get finished, but they keep prioritizing other stuff in front of it. Let's move on to 2015. So this just has the rest of the hull series in it, so the hull A, B, D, and E. Now, each of these hulls are different ships, and they get progressively bigger, with the A being very small, the B getting a bit bigger, and then the D and E being ridiculously massive in size, with the sort of E being absurd. These ships form a large part of the dynamic economy in Star Citizen, or will, I should say. They're going to be taking goods from one area to another. Just watch out for pirates. 2016 just has the Polaris left to be completed. This is greatly anticipated as a multi-role torpedo corvette. Big torps, a hangar with a load of facilities on the ship, and a lot of people are going to have this as their flagship, their org, or the center of a fleet. We know the Polaris got a tiny bit bigger recently as well, and it's seen a little bit more concepting work. We've got a few more in 2017 though, ship and vehicle-wise. The Nova tank, a main battle tank with a crew. This has been prioritized for theaters of war, the sort of battlefield-style game mode, and we know that it's in active production and getting through its white box phase currently. The Pioneer, a massive mobile base-building factory ship, was also announced in 2017. Once focused on outposts and sort of like making them, deploying them and taking them back up and moving them, it's now going to have much more function for the new Homestead system as a mobile factory, and more expanded base gameplay mechanics that Cloud Imperium are admittedly still fleshing out. We won't need one to actually build a base, but the scale and options that you will have by having a Pioneer will really make it worth it if you want to do base building. The Vulture is a small salvage vessel that we're hoping to have in game in the next few quarters with some form of salvage gameplay. It's supposed to strip the hulls of ships as one of its major focuses, but it is sort of like entry-level salvage, and I'm really looking forward to that ship. The X1 series are luxury hoverbikes for use on the ground primarily. I have no idea when they're going to actually be finished off in their development because I suspect they're pretty low priority. I don't believe they're in active development at the moment either. The Titan suits. So the first proper references I have to Titan suits are from 2017. Now, these haven't gone on concept sale or anything like that. These are exosuits that are kind of a cross between Iron Man and a power loader. They are very much part of the Squadron 42 campaign and will be in the Persistent Universe at some point as well. They mentioned that they wanted them in theatres of war as soon as possible, and I want them as well. Basically, this is arming heavy infantry with size 1 or 2 ship or vehicle weapons, it looks like. Though they might have some utility function as well. Obviously, they're going to have down sides. They're probably quite big targets for infantry, and they probably can't move too well in structures. 2018, the Apollo medical ship is a medium modular clinic that can be set up to deal with lots of minor injuries or a couple of life-threatening ones. It's got 2 modular rooms that you can sort of mix and match the type of clinic you've got in each of them. A great ship for search and rescue, providing some of the best treatment and responding to players. The Vulcan is another ship potentially for search and rescue, but I suppose in a different way. It's more of a service ship. This is a ship that specialises in rearm, repair and refuel with its drones, a super useful jack of all trades as a service ship. The F8 is a heavy fighter with a civilian model being announced in 2018, so the F8C, I suppose. We know that you'll be able to get access to the ship for use in the Persistent Universe when you get to a certain stage in Squadron 42. This will be true of other gear and potentially ships as well. Expect them to cost a lot of UEC though. We have actually seen the F8 and the F7A in game already, and some people were able to steal them for the Fleet Week in May. So after the Nova tank had been announced, players asked, how do I get a Nova tank to the ground? Because very few ships can carry something that large. The Hercules series of ships answered this. So we've got the C2, M2 and A2. The C2 is the sort of base version. That can carry up to 2 tanks and some cargo to the ground. You've got the M2, which is the more military version. And if you forsake your cargo, you can carry up to 2 tanks to the ground. And it's got some more military gear and armor, that sort of stuff for that ship. And then you've got the A2, which is a bomber variant, which can carry up to 1 tank, but its primary role appears to be ground base installation destruction. I was hoping that the C2, the base variant, was going to be an 2020 release, but now it's hopefully going to be an early 2021 release, but with its variants coming later. Probably, we'll have to wait and see. The Santok Yai is a medium fighter version of the Xi'an Katu Al, much more durable and well armed, but probably not as agile, although it should be pretty agile and unique in the way it moves still, because of the way that Xi'an sort of like have their fighters set up. The Kraken is a very, 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 very popular light assault carrier, but also a mobile space station. Various landing pads and hangar bays allow for constant rearming of ships and a place to operate as a base. It has a large amount of cargo room, a garage for dragonflies. Expect to see these as pirate bases throughout the verse, and place that pirates spawn from, sort of very often. Its privateer variant was announced in 2019. This converted some of its cargo area and dragonfly garages into shops, making it much more of a mall or shopping centre in space. Let's move on to 2019 with the rest of the announced ships for that year as well now. We have the Ares, Ion and Inferno. This is a size 7 weapon with a ship attached. It's classed as a heavy fighter. The Ion specialises in slow, long-range sniping for the most part, whereas the Inferno has a fast-firing ballistic cannon for shorter-range encounters. We've got the Corsair. This was Drake's answer to the Constellation Aquila, and Carrack, really, a cheap, no-frills exploration craft for long-range expedition-type gameplay. The poor man's Carrack, pretty much. Looks cool. Looking forward to being in game. It's going to be pretty multi-role, it looks like, as well. The Nautilus. This is both a mine layer and minesweeper, able to place a field of mines itself or repurpose others that it finds and diffuses with its sweeper drones. The mines that it can supposedly lay are magnetic, traditional sort of boom boom mines, but also it can place floating turrets, which are going to be really, really useful. The Nautilus is pretty big by itself and has some nice forward-facing armament, but it doesn't really want to get into a fight by itself. There's the SRV. This is a tractor-beam tow truck. Various ships come with or can mount a tractor beam, but the SRV fully focuses on them. This will have ships being rescued out of atmosphere. Say your ship is too heavy, it's been damaged or whatever, it can't get out of atmosphere for a reason. Well, then an SRV or SRVs can work together to take that ship out of atmosphere. You can tow ships to a space station, literally search and rescue, bam, turns up, takes your ship to an area. It can be used to aid salvage ships or mining ships by using its tractor beams for that sort of purpose as well. So lots of utility there, lots of tow truck potential there, very cool ship. We have the Ranger series of bikes, and these are wheeled bikes coming in the standard CV version, but also the TR weaponed version and the RC racing version. They are small and compact and should be able to fit into many ships. Moving on to the current year, 2020, the G12 series are luxury Origin rovers, a cross between the Ursa rover and the Cyclone, sort of like enclosed still, but quite fast, but not as armoured, I suppose, as the Ursa. There is the standard G12 version. That comes with a turret, but there's also the G12A, which comes with missiles, and a racing version, the R. Also coming shortly in Alpha 3.12 is the Talon and its missile-toting variant, the Shrike. These are Tavaran hit-and-run light fighters that look like awesome birds, and they're a bit stealthy too. We've got the Perseus, and that's the latest ship to go to concept. It's a large ship with big guns that wants to target large and capital ships. A cross between the Hammerhead and Polaris, or at least it's sort of like an alternative to them, sits in between them maybe, with its various facilities and room for ground vehicle. It's going to be suitable for a lot of different players to use in lots of different ways, whether that be a multi-role mission runner, whether it be a flagship, or something that you focus a fleet around. And that's sort of it for the announced concept and vehicles that have not been completed yet, though I do want to give a couple of honourable mentions. We know that the Glaive and Scythe, those Vandal ships, they're going to be updated with the Squadron 42 models at some point, so the ones we've got in the Persistent Universe at the moment, they're the old models. There are a load of Vandal ships and capitals that Cloud Imperium have been working on. The Mighty King ship, the Harvester, the Hunter, Driller, Stinger, and more, lots of Vandal stuff. Also, there are more ships and vehicles that Cloud Imperium are working on for the Persistent Universe, like the Sidnus mining tick, I suppose, that we've seen in the Squadron 42 trailers. But also, there are others that they're working on now that are going to be straight to flyable that we don't know about yet, or they haven't officially announced yet. These will pop up in major patches. And we can still see the old concept ship like the Perseus from time to time too, but they are much more rare and they are much more likely to lean towards straight to flyables where possible. We're also still waiting for the mobile refinery ship and the Xi'an cargo ship that Cloud Imperium talked about at 2019 CitizenCon. We're expecting those to probably go to concept sometime soon, but we don't know. They might go straight to flyable, they might not even be in-game, although the mobile refinery is incredibly popular and was originally what I thought the Nomad was going to be, but it wasn't. Star Citizen makes a lot of ships though, with a huge portion of them actually already in-game, and many more in various stages of development. Some I expect to be completed in 2021, I suppose. I mean, the Talon and the Shrike, they're going to be completed in 2020, but others are going to be completed much further down the line. The Endeavour and the Orion, for example, I actually expect to be some of the ships that go in much later, but it all does depend on Cloud Imperium's priorities. Those could change. They might go, actually, we want to get the Orion in the game now. It's worth mentioning sort of some of these priorities and how they shift. So these old concepts and some of the new ships that they're working on, along with locations, points of interest, and structures, are typically worked on by similar or the same teams. And Squadron 42 is getting the lion's share of development priorities currently. So some ships that aren't needed for Squadron 42 at all and don't fit in to a particular time frame or a particular type of team, they are going to be left by the wayside until they do have the appropriate people to build them, or they have the enough sort of amount of time to build them. And you're still going to have ships like the Taurus, which they work on and then they pause it when something else of a higher priority comes along. So It can be frustrating at times, especially if you've bought a ship like the Bounty Merchantman, which I think we all want in the game ASAP, but those aren't necessarily where Cloud Imperium's sort of priorities lie. Anyway, I hope you thought that was somewhat interesting or informative as a topic, but what do you think? Do you think that Cloud Imperium should clear out the concept ships from the backlog ASAP in a chronological order? Do you think their prioritizations make a kind of sense? What ships do you want to see in-game as a priority? Do you think Cloud Imperium should hire more staff to work on ships and get the backlog cleared out? Or do you think that would be ridiculous? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Shipmas! We're giving away a Mercury Star Runner in December because it's Christmas and we do it every month anyway. Zin, put a Mercury Star Runner in my hand, because that's what we're giving away, and put a hat on it, like a Christmas hat. There you go. That's animation for you, potentially. I just moved my hand around. So just comment on any one of my videos during the month of December to be in for a chance of winning that. Also, maybe give someone special the gift that keeps on giving. I'm talking, of course, about NordVPN. Links below. Also, don't forget Shadow. They do cloud-based gaming stuff, so you can get that as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Click the YouTube join button. Like and subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. Thanks for supporting the channel. Merry Christmas. Oh, oh, oh. Mercury Star.